Good evening. Let's talk about acute suffering and what to do when it gets really intense. Like what to actually do in that moment. Here's what I do. When the mind gets really excited about something, and by excited I mean just like active, really active. Lots of thoughts, lots of movement in the mind, lots of thinking about scenarios and memories other than this moment. Like being somewhere else than where you actually are. That's what I consider mind movement. When there's a lot of that going on, I try to find a place where I can be preferably alone. And I sit or I lie down and I close the eyes and I kind of settle into that storm. I settle into that storm to get a good sense, a good view, a good panoramic view of the whole sense experience in the moment. So let's do that right now. So just settling in to exactly where you are and allowing everything to run around, to push on you, to just come, allowing everything to be and to come, to be within you, all those feelings, all the memories, all the stories, all the fears, allowing all that to be for just a while, just to see it, actually see all the textures of suffering that are present for you, actually, in your felt experience. And once you kind of stop and settle in just a little bit, then I usually find myself asking the question, or just like energetically pointing myself to, well, the question I ask is, I kind of stare into, I look at the entire experience energetically, all these sensations, and I ask myself, where in this experience is the suffering sensations? Like, where's the actual sensations in the body or in my being that are the proof that I am suffering? Because the suffering's never in the thoughts. You can think about really crazy stuff without suffering at all if you don't have that bodily reaction to the thoughts. So actually, you only know you're suffering your thoughts when the body is kind of sensing something at the same time as a reaction to those thoughts. So now it's like directly asking yourself, where is the suffering sensation? Usually it might be a vague like field of tension or something around the stomach, or a kind of numbness and um, emptiness in the heart, or just kind of an overall tension in the face. So just kind of consciously noticing where are your places where the body is suffering, the thoughts. Where's the friction in the body? What places in the body light up when you think those suffering thoughts? And be there as it does. And so now, this is how you become aware in the first place of where the suffering is. And now that you know kind of where it is, you can begin to work with it. And not even to work, but just to be with it. Just to be it. Be it. That's actually way more liberating than you may think. But a couple things to keep in mind here is that once you find your suffering places in the body right now, you can never just like keep thinking that, okay, this is the place where I always suffer. No. The places where the body's reacting change every second. And even if at first glance it may seem it's the same place as it was yesterday, or the same place it was 10 seconds ago, it's actually different. And so you have to keep a fresh outlook on your suffering every day, and every time you sit down with it. You can never kind of remember your way into some old suffering sensations because they're always new. And even just that, noticing that every time a sensation comes up is always new, that has a sense of kind of freeing us a little bit, because one part of the suffering is that the sense that it's like just always here. It's the same suffering, it's always with me, it never goes away. Like that kind of sticky sense begins to dissolve a little bit actually, when you notice that it's actually always new, it's fresh, it's alive in this moment. You can be in contact with it. How? Okay, let's see now. So find the place. Find the place. You can find it, because if you couldn't find it, you wouldn't know you're suffering, right? So find it. Find the place that's informing your consciousness that it is suffering. Find it. There is something in you that's taken as proof of the suffering. Find it. Or is there? Once you find it and kind of begin to sense it, you just keep experiencing it, but not from afar. So here's the trick. You find the sensation, and then you become aware of this duality of the sensation, the suffering sensation, and the one who's suffering the sensation. Are you getting this? You begin to notice the duality between the sensation and the one who's suffering the sensation. Let me check the time. Okay. So this is really important. You can become aware of the sensation because that's how you know you suffer. Now try and take your attention to the one suffering the sensation. Can you find an outside entity who's suffering the sensation somewhere? Just try and bring it into view. Just try and get a look at it. Look at yourself. Try and see if there is something outside the sensation that's a who, that is like a small human in your mind, constantly looking at that suffering sensation and suffering it. Or do you only find the sensation? Which one is it in your experience? And don't think that you should be somehow finding the right answer or anything like that. Just like actually look into your experience, because you're the only conscious being here. I'm just a picture. I am just a picture. The one who's conscious here is you. You get that? So notice that the suffering sensation and the one suffering the sensation are two different things. It's not like one coherent experience for you if it's like that. It's not like there's the suffering in the body and then there's a mental human suffering, the thing in the body. Or is it? Have a look at it. You can tell by now that actually there's not that much to do here. It's just having a look at how this works, because the body and the consciousness, they're never working against itself. You know what I mean? They're never creating an experience that's unnecessary or wrong. They're creating experiences, and then some pattern, some mechanism in the consciousness begins to react and to create reactions to those natural processes, and that creates kind of the problems. But so coming back to that first idea is that become aware of the suffering sensation. You can do it. And then kind of sense what it feels like to be this vague person, like maybe in the back of the experience somehow, somewhere behind your face. That's kind of experiencing the suffering. Who's suffering the suffering? Can you keep your attention on that? Can you even consider that sensation of yourself suffering to be the new suffering sensation? You know, a deeper layer of suffering is actually the sensation of being a one suffering. So now keeping your attention on yourself, if you need to kind of refresh it, if it fades out of you, then you can just go back to the body somewhere and feel some suffering, or try to remember a memory that is painful for you. And then as the painful memory comes, there's something kind of bouncing away from the memory. Something saying, oh man, I don't want this to be the case. I don't want this shouldn't be. I want something else. It's not fair. That energy that's kind of recoiling from the experience, that's the suffering actually. And so now you're creating a new distinction in yourself, where the body is free to have sensations, and the mind is free to have memories and imaginations of the future. And as soon as something in the mental space begins to recoil, begins to talk about, narrate stuff about the experience, you instantly can label that as suffering. Not the thing itself, but the reaction to the thing. You see how this works? You're taking the label of suffering away from the sensation and you're moving it back to yourself. Because you're the sufferer. And the master key is to realize, and you can't just, isn't something you just hear and it unlocks, although it could, but you have to do this many times. And at some point, it will just kind of click for you that there is no suffering in your experience but you. How's that land? So, taking the suffering from innocent sensations, innocent memories, innocent thoughts, back to where it belongs, is to see that kind of avoiding movement. When you kind of go like, I don't want to remember this, or, oh man, I don't want to wait for tomorrow and then I have to do this. That's the suffering sensation. And so what do we do with the suffering sensation? We just went through this. You stay with it. You stay with yourself in this case. You begin to stay with yourself more. Because in this way you also notice the contrast of what you have been doing before, which is to be with everything else except the suffering. You've been paying attention neurotically to everything else, literally everything and anything else than the suffering. Because you've been taking yourself to be the suffering. And not seeing the suffering as suffering. Does that make sense? And so now you no longer pay attention to the memories, even though they may play out and may be important actually to your life. And it's always important to keep unwinding the human mechanism and the human things also. So this is not to use for bypassing anything in the regular world, but it's for your internal sense of how this experience feels for you. That only. And so anytime you notice that sense of something pulling back from your own experience or pulling back from the sensation, you take your attention to that pulling back sensation, because that's the suffering. Then you feel it, let it be, let it move, let it react, let it evolve, let it morph. And then again you ask, is there a being outside of that movement who's experiencing the movement of recoiling? That bouncing away sensation? Or how does it work? And there's no right answer here. Again, you don't have to find some conclusion. You will not find yourself like this, because many people with spiritual things, they somehow always hope to find that right experience, find that the self, or find the emptiness, find the nirvana, whatever. Even though they kind of know they shouldn't be looking for it, they still kind of look for it because they imagine that will somehow help them take the suffering away and would be their goal. But actually, here's a deeper truth, a more profound truth, is that you are complete. This is a moving face, a moving picture, saying to this larger conscious system that it is awake. You are aware of me. Of course you're awake, how else could it be? And so now what do we do inside this awakeness? You're completely fully awake. Just look around. There's nothing but seeing, nothing but light, nothing but awakeness. It's complete. And so now we're just learning to how to more skillfully function as a being in this. Now that we're here, for the time that we're here. And so not suffering every day is an important part of that. Even though there might be pain or might be unfortunate events happening for you, like they do for everyone. It's important to have this more fluid way of dealing with the internal suffering and knowing what to do. That's the main thing, because uncertainty and not knowing what to do when something intense comes up, that's like over half the suffering actually. It's just a sense of what should I be doing? And we never say it out loud, but that's how it feels. It's like we have no way of dealing with the intensity, we have no way of dealing with this magnitude of experience. That's how it actually registers to the unconsciousness or the unconscious mind. And so this is how we learn. It's a beautiful opportunity to learn, to you can learn through your suffering that you don't have to create this kind of recoiling movement away from your experience. But you can just face it head on every time. And when it gets really intense, the mind will say, I can't do it. It's going to be like complete pressure. Is like being under thousands of how do you say, like under an ocean or something. It's like insane pressure in you saying that I just can't. I can't do anything. Everything is impossible. I'm just like suffering 100%. You find that sensation. And you see, is there anything recoiling from this maximal suffering? Or are you able to just be the suffering without actually suffering it? Because the suffering itself is not suffering. In order for there to be suffering, there has to be something suffering the thing. And so we're just learning to dissolve those mechanisms that create the sufferer in different situations. So it's not really that complex. It's actually really simple, like most things. And so this is one suggestion to do, and it also nicely will lead you into more embodied way of experiencing everything, every emotion, every thought, every human. And it will give you so much empathy for others, because you also begin to see how other people are recoiling from their emotions or their experiences, and you have a way of seeing through that with them. Even if you never said anything or even tried to help them or even knew them personally. Just when one tiny corner of this awake field can relax into the suffering, no matter where it is, if it's in you or if it's some other part of this larger field, that's the light. Okay?